Welcome to Sporting Mentality. Today we're going to be predicting the outcomes of the NFC and AFC title games, talking about the Bears, talking about the Cowboys, Eagles, and a few other topics. But before we get into it, guys, be sure to drop a like on the video, on the podcast, subscribe if you're new, and if you're on any other platform other than YouTube, leave a 5-star review so you help the pod out. And without further ado, let's get right into it. I mentioned this in the podcast this morning, but whenever you have a great on the board, you don't pass them up. And that's exactly what the Cowboys did. They had the opportunity to move off of Mike McCarthy and get Bill Belichick, and they just did not go for it. They had the opportunity to go for John Harbaugh, and they just did not go for it. Maybe those two guys didn't have any interest in that big brand with Dak Prescott, but it doesn't make any sense because now you're in a situation that no team wants to be in. You have a mediocre quarterback that you're paying superstar numbers, and you have a mediocre coach that is coaching a mediocre quarterback. Dak is a B to B plus quarterback. In the regular season, you could argue he's an A minus. But the reality of the situation is they've been average, or they've been like mediocre, in my opinion, for the last 7, 8 years, 9 years, however long Dak's been starting for them. And it's not going to get any better if you're not going to change. That is just the reality of the situation here. All Jerry Jones cares about is his money. All he cares about selling tickets. And he does that. He does that every year. But you guys haven't been to an NFC title game in 30 years. And you're the face of football. You're America's team. And this is the standard that you guys settled for? Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy. That's what you settle for. A 32-year-old Dak Prescott that you're going to pay $55 million a year because he's not going to accept $30 million a year. His contract's due. You have to re-sign him. You're going to re-sign him because Jerry Jones thinks he's Michael Jordan. So now you're stuck with a quarterback that you're going to have to pay $55 million a year. That's Josh Allen numbers, by the way. And you have a coach who's unproven in the playoffs. The only time he ever won in the playoffs was with arguably a top 5 quarterback of all time in Aaron Rodgers. So you, Jerry Jones, Cowboys, you settled for mediocrity. And that's what you're going to get once again. Now, if I'm a Cowboys fan, and I'm trying to figure out what my team needs to do for the next season, this is what I would suggest Jerry Jones, the GM, Mike McCarthy, and all those guys to do. First things first, you got to get a new running back. I would sign Derrick Henry. You only have a few more years of Dak's prime left. Take advantage of it. Sign Derrick Henry. Tony Pollard would be a good complementary back to him. I would use my first 2 draft picks on a wide receiver and a left tackle to get more depth and another weapon. And I would get some more depth on the defensive side of the ball, and you would probably be, at your best case scenario with the things that you are working with. But at this point, all you guys can do is hope and pray because Jerry Jones is just a stubborn, meddling owner, and that's what he's been for the last 20 years. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. There's really no hope for you guys, in my opinion. The second thing I have written down is a fun topic that, is not realistic, obviously, but a fun hypothetical. Imagine if Bill Belichick went to the Bills after the Chiefs game, if they would have fired Sean McDermott. Imagine if Bill Belichick went to the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. Imagine what kind of run they would go on. Josh Allen and Bill Belichick versus Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Two dynasties right there. Imagine them going head-to-head in the AFC every single year. I think Belichick would have brought 2 rings to that franchise if they would have went for it. But they're going to stick with Sean McDermott. They defended him in the regular season with all the stuff that came out from Ty Dunn, all the articles about 9/11 and just horrible shit that he said in 2019. And he apologized and stuff. But that team is going to stand behind their coach. And, that's fine, but once again, another team passing on a great when you could get them. So that was just a fun hypothetical. Belichick to the Bills, that would be a dynasty that I would not want to run into. Purdy and the doubters. I'm tired of the doubters. What are we talking about here? Oh, Purdy can't come from behind. Purdy can't grip a ball. Purdy can't throw it accurately when it's raining. Blah 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 blah. We know what Purdy is, people. This is not, we've seen 18 months of football from him, or a year of football from him, total. We already know what he is. He's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, 15 to 17 quarterback in the NFL, and he can get the job done with the right pieces around him, of course. He's accurate. He's smart. But yeah, he has limitations. He has limitations physically. He doesn't move, like Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. He doesn't throw the ball like Jared Goff. He doesn't have huge hands. He just has limitations. He was the last pick in the draft. But to say he's not a starter in this league is ridiculous. We've seen him bring a team to the NFC Championship, or however far they got last year. We've seen him bring a team to the playoffs and win a game. So, I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about here. I think it's kind of ridiculous how many haters there are on Brock Purdy. We know what he is. I think he's a top 15 quarterback in the NFL, and I think he's going to be that for a while. But if he loses this week, I could see some people discussing, is Brock Purdy the right quarterback for the 49ers? Because they did move off of Jimmy Garoppolo fairly quick after he brought them to the Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo brought the 49ers to the Super Bowl, played one more year, and then he was gone. So, I mean, they are not hesitant to move off of quarterbacks, but I think Brock Purdy has pretty much secured his job. That's my thoughts on Purdy. Predictions for the title games. Into the big discussion. Will Lamar Jackson save us all is the real question. Lamar Jackson, will he finally take down the dynasty that is Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? I'm tired of seeing Mahomes in the Super Bowl. We've seen it for 5 years straight or whatever it's been. So yeah, I think that Lamar Jackson is going to win the Super Bowl this year, and there's a few reasons for that. So my prediction for the Ravens versus Chiefs is Ravens around 32 points, Chiefs around 23 points, like a 9-point difference. The reasons being is the Ravens are just the more complete team. They have a coach that's been there, done that. Harbaugh won in 2012 with Flacco. They have an elite defense with some depth, and they have superstars on the offensive side of the ball. They have a good left tackle. They have the best quarterback in the league right now, in my opinion. And they have solid weapons. Zay Flowers, it reminds me of a young T.Y. Hilton. Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews. Hopefully he plays for them, for their sake. And they just have a more complete team with a lot of depth and more weapons than the Chiefs. The Chiefs are a cute story. They have Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, all that stuff. They beat the Bills, blah, 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 blah. But in my opinion, beating the Bills and the Dolphins is not that impressive. You know the Bills like the back of your hand, and you're in their head, and they had a depleted defense. You're running into a juggernaut, Chiefs. You're not running into the Bills. You're not running into the Dolphins. You're running into the Baltimore Ravens, and they mean business this year. Lamar's 100%, and that defense is stout with a lot of young, insanely good defenders. Roquan Smith, Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle, whatever his name is. Now I can't think of him. But they have some stars over there. Stars. And they aren't going to be easy to just, walk through like you did with Buffalo. So, yeah, I don't think the Chiefs have a really good chance. I think the Ravens will win and cover. So that's my take on that. That bet. As far as for the Lions and 49ers, I think that this will be a shootout. I think it'll be a fairly close game. Especially, if Debo doesn't play, I think that's the deciding factor in the game. If Debo plays, 49ers probably win in a shootout by 3 to 5 points. If Debo doesn't play, I'm taking the Lions by 3 to 5 points. I don't know the news yet. I don't know if it'll be out by tomorrow. It seems like he's going to play. If he plays, I'm taking the Niners. If he doesn't, I'm taking the Lions. That's just the reality of the situation. Two solid quarterbacks. Two good wide receivers on each side. Stars. Well, I guess you have Kittle, Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. It's going to be a fun matchup, but I'm taking the team based off of Deebo Samuel's status. So that's my prediction for the NFC title game. What do the Bears do with Justin Fields in their coaching situation? Well, obviously they're going to trade Justin Fields, but how do they go about that? Well, if I'm the Bears, I'm calling as many teams as I can. I'm calling as many teams as I can to get interested in Justin Fields. and try to drive up his price to potentially get a second-round pick. If you get a second-round pick for an expiring for a contract that's coming up that you're going to have to pay, like whoever signs Justin Fields is going to have to pay him, or whoever trades for Justin Fields is going to have to pay him before he plays a snap for their team. So if you can get a second-round pick from him, that would be a home run, no doubt about it. But the Bears, in my opinion, are just going to be the Bears for the next 10 years. Caleb Williams, I feel like he can only do so much unless he's actually the prodigy that everybody's talking about. I don't think he is. I don't think he's going to be better than Mahomes. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback walking into the league. Maybe he is, though. Maybe he saves that franchise. But you re-signed, or you confirmed that Matt Eberflus is going to be your coach next year. Matt Eberflus, the former Colts defensive coordinator. Like, what are we doing here? He was the Colts defensive coordinator when we were like 4-12. And you just made him your head coach again when he did nothing with Justin Fields, an all-time talent. Not an all-time talent, but he's a good talent, like an insane athlete with a lot of capabilities, and you couldn't do anything with him. So, yeah, I feel like them keeping Matt Eberflus is going to be the downfall of that franchise. Maybe they fire him like 4 games in next year and Belichick takes over. I feel like that would be pretty cool, especially if they actually get Caleb Williams. But yeah, the Bears, I feel like they're just going to be in the same situation that they've been in for the past decade. Next up, the Eagles are fucked. That is literally what I have written down. The Eagles are fucked. If you're going to keep Nick Sirianni as your head coach, you are fucked. Because that guy is a douchebag. He's immature. He's not getting on the podium. One of the worst first head coach press conferences ever. Stuttered all over the place. Didn't know what he was talking about. Nick Sirianni is a joke of an NFL head coach. He doesn't know how to do it. Why do you have a 42-year-old running your operation? What are you doing? What is the thought process behind that? After he lost in the first round and clearly lost all the fight from their team to the Buccaneers. I love Baker Mayfield. But you lost to Baker fucking Mayfield. Like, what are you doing? You have Jalen Hurts, Jason Kelce. You have stars. Stars on that team, and you lost to a Buccaneers team who wasn't even expected to make the playoffs. The people expected them to be, 6-11. And you got your ass kicked by them. And you re-signed, you kept Nick Sirianni when Belichick's on the board? How many times do I have to go over this? If a great is on the board, you do not pass him up because it's going to bite your franchise in the ass. Now, they did get Vic Fangio as a DC. That's huge. But I just do not trust Nick Sirianni running an operation like that. I just don't trust it. It hasn't worked. It worked when he had an all-star offensive coordinator who made your quarterback look like a top 5 quarterback when you had Shane Steichen. But guess what? He's on my Colts now. Now you're relying on Nick Sirianni to run your operation. So I hope you feel confident in that, Eagles. When Belichick was on the board, when Harbaugh was on the board, when Raheem Morris was on the board. So I don't know. I mean, that's just bizarre. That is completely bizarre to me that you would settle for that, jokester, for that absolute joke of a coach, that you settle for that. I feel like that shows me a lot about your franchise, considering how much they fell off. I mean, he runs the team, guys. He runs the Eagles. And the fact that they lost that much hope over those last 6 games in that playoff game, he lost the locker room. What else happened? The coach is the leader. He's supposed to keep those guys intact, even if other people down the totem pole are being dicks or whatever, and people don't like him. They're sort of making people lose hope. He's supposed to be the one to bring them all together, and he couldn't do that. And they lost to the Buccaneers. They got their ass kicked by Baker Mayfield. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like that's stupid. I feel like the Eagles are fucked because of that. I don't think they're going to be any danger next year in the NFC. And that's the podcast, guys. I talked about the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, Belichick, if he went to the Bills, Purdy and the Doubters, predictions for the title games, what do the Bears do, and the Eagles are completely fucked. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, be sure to drop a like and subscribe. If you're on any other platform other than YouTube, make sure to leave a 5-star review, and I appreciate you guys watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Also, DM me on Instagram or Twitter, wherever you want to DM me, any questions that you want me to answer on the podcast so I can answer them for the next episode. All right, peace out, guys.